Isabel, let's talk about the summer riots, the white working class riots that Keir Starmer and all the establishment would have as far-right thugs. It was far-right. They weren't protests. They were protests. They were protests against our migrant crisis. Now, the police watchdog has found a big surprise that the police, the cops, weren't prepared for these uprisings, for these riots. They said that they had missed opportunities to be ready for the widespread disorder involving... This is the Chief Inspector of Constabulary, a guy called Andy Cooke. He said that it was clear cops missed opportunities to be ready for widespread disorder involving, and I quote, extreme nationalist sentiment, close quotes. Now, this feeds into something I saw, a weird report on the BBC News last Friday. Happened to watch this. Well, let me just put it was basically coppers talking about their experience. Say something about a heart.
We heard someone say something about a heart attack. When this was happening, we were in the middle of one of the streets, like fighting again with our shields and going forward and having things thrown at us.
My mind had gone, I would say, for that short period of time.
That night I went home, I couldn't sleep at all, and I couldn't sleep, and I didn't know if he was dead or alive or...
These are the people that draw everything out of the community, draw the life and soul out of the community, give nothing but take everything. The people that commit the antisocial behaviour, the hardcore element of this disruptive group were them people.
How do you describe them?
Personally, parasites.
I didn't sleep for months after. Couldn't sleep.
I went on holiday with my family. I think it was probably day 2 or day 3. I just felt as though I just sort of hit the floor, if you like. Felt as though I could have just broke down, to be honest.
So, that's a BBC News exclusive last Friday, right, Isabel? These are coppers telling us about how traumatised they were dealing with these far-right thugs, these antisocial people who are parasites on society. Don't we hate them, we hate them, we hate them. You don't get coppers on the telly telling about their traumatic experiences policing ethnic riots, do you? You know, Hair Hills in Leeds that you know a lot about, Birmingham, the Muslim riots, Leicester. We don't see them talking about the trauma of policing them. This is propaganda. This is the BBC and the police making sure that we are aware that the most antisocial, dangerous people in the world were those white working class rioters. They were far-right thugs, of course. Well, you know, nobody condones their methods. Nobody condones what they did. It was horrible. You know, you can't go around trying to set fire to migrant hotels, throw bricks at coppers, attack mosques. You can't do that. That is wrong. However, the demonisation of these people continues apace. This was the weirdest thing I've seen on telly for a long time. Coppers, I couldn't sleep for months. Oh, I was traumatised. I don't know what I saw. You know, weird, don't you think?
I think it's jaw-dropping, actually. I'd go further. I mean, the police are not allowed to speak out about this kind of thing. You know, as you say, when did you last hear them talking about their trauma of policing some ugly pro-Hamas protest or, you know, anti-Semitic stuff, or their trauma of, as you say, policing those absolutely disgraceful riots in Hair Hills in Leeds, which were predominantly by one community. We don't hear them talking about how awful that was and how, you know, the sleepless nights that they're now suffering. And, you know, for an illustration of the grotesquely distorted approach to what happened over the summer, look no further than the way in which the young woman who threw, I think it was a milkshake at Nigel Farage, escaped any kind of custodial sentence.
Disgrace.
You know, when there are others who simply tweeted and reported on bad things that were happening that have been thrown into jail for long periods. I mean, you know, I know that Mr. Farage finds these sorts of attacks really genuinely frightening, not because he isn't an extremely tough person, but because he lives day in, day out with the threat of actual murder by crazy people. And when someone lunges at you with an unknown liquid, you know, how do you know that it's not acid or something equally dangerous and corrosive and potentially life-threatening? Oh, but somehow, because it's Nigel Farage, you know, the leader of Reform UK, that's all right. You know, you escape with a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of stuff massively undermines public trust in policing. And now would be our moment, Kev, to come back to that whole thing. Why have those Manchester airport thugs not been charged?
Yeah, I want to wish them, I mean, they're Muslims, so they won't celebrate Christmas, but I do want to wish them a very happy Christmas and a merry new year. I'm sure that they're going to enjoy another year of freedom the way the Crown Prosecution Service is going on. It's an absolute scandal. Come on! This July the 23rd. All caught on film, still no charges. Either charge them or tell us, the British public, you know, the British public that you so love to keep in the dark, that you're going to drop the case. One or the other. Don't just let it trundle on. But to go back to that weird, those coppers talking about not being able to sleep and the trauma and the parasitic far-right thugs and all that, that's thought control. That is the BBC working with the police, with the approval of the government, to make sure we're all thinking the right thing about those summer riots, that they were not protests, they were far-right thugs. Well, you know, as I say, nobody condones their method of protesting, but they were protests. They were protests about the migrant crisis, and as you just alluded to, we're not allowed, actually, to be angry about the migrant crisis. We have to be angry about far-right thugs. That's what the government wants us to do. That's what the police wants us to do. That's what the establishment wants us to do. Those reports, those coppers, I've never seen anything like it. That was choreographed rubbish. Thought control, propaganda, that's what that was.
It was indeed, and I believe that the majority of people who took part in those riots were not far-right thugs. They were misguided, many of them were ignorant, and they behaved badly. But I think that these were ordinary people who perceive that their quality of life is being adversely affected by the diversion of resources to migrants and people who have given nothing to this country whilst arriving illegally by boat. That's how they feel, the people that took part in the riots. And the way they behaved is not good and it's not acceptable, and we don't condone it. But to just dismiss it in the way the government did as far-right thuggery is to fail to understand a groundswell of opinion in communities up and down this country, that they are being deprioritised for the allocation of all sorts of resources, and indeed that the safety of their communities is being threatened by those who don't necessarily support our way of life. That's what they fear, that's what they feel. They might be wrong about that, but they are not necessarily terrible people.
Totally right. Isabel, listen, thank you very much for all your brilliant contributions to this show.